Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman, and it feels good to say that today, especially Dan, as Aston Villa have just beaten Everton 2-1 away from home. First of all, how are you doing, mate?
Mate, that beaming smile is back on my face. That only comes on when Aston Villa win a game and I can hop on this podcast with you and talk through it, mate. Wow, this one felt really, really good. Um, I'm sure we're going to go into great detail about how we did that and how different it has been. It feels like we've evolved in the last few weeks. It got better in the West Brom games. There were still some flaws. It got better, and today it was best. And we really showed that progression through the weeks. And mate, I felt like the lads have really answered some critics out there tonight. And oh man, it just feels so good, doesn't it?
It does. It's an overall team performance, which I think we can really be proud of. And I don't want to get too carried away and think, with it's amazing, it's this, it's that. Of course it is. But the sort of the structure of this was very much there in the West Brom game. And I've seen a lot of people criticise the performance against West Brom. I thought we were fantastic, to be honest, against West Brom. And we've taken a few pelters for saying things like that in the comments of the last podcast, Dan. But it was very much that sort of attacking approach. It wasn't as heavily dictated by Villa in this game, which the statistics will kind of lend themselves to, which we will, of course, get onto later on in the podcast, Dan. But this was, I think the word to use is valiant. It was a valiant team performance. It was a game which I think Villa never necessarily controlled in the midfield, which is maybe a slight criticism, but Villa managed to assert their dominance just by the sheer amount of chances that they created and clear-cut chances as well. And of course, that will lead into the XG, which we get onto later in the podcast. You guys know the format by now. But Villa really dictated this game by creating big chances and actually having Everton on the back foot on many opportunities. And of course, that lent the Everton and their game to kind of counter-attack Villa as the game went on. But of course, there are a few heart-in-mouth moments. You've got the Calvert-Lewin header, which Emmy saves, which was, of course, offside. There was a few moments like that where I think Tyrone heads the ball backwards, where you're thinking, oh, God, let's not let this undo the hard work that we've seen so far. But for Villa to go and create as many chances as they did, Dan, 13 attempts on goal, 11 from open play, against a side like Everton, who are firmly trying to get into that European football positions. They're in the upper echelons of the table, where we had been for so long of the season. It's really impressive win this, Dan, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, mate. And it felt really important to both teams that they went out and got this result tonight. You know, you look at Everton's recent form. They had that run of 5 league matches without a victory between, I think it was 8th of March and the 16th of April. They then snapped that with the 1-0 win in Arsenal in their last game. And it felt like with them desperately, that race, their spot in the top 4, which it looks on for good points of the season, has finally disappeared away, and they're now doing battle for that Europa League spot. That poor run of form has sort of sent them slipping away. And for Villa, we all know the tough run of form that we've been on recently. It did feel like, I think you're right in saying that there was a lot to take out of the West Brom game, but the fact that we didn't get the result meant that I think the Villa boys had still something to prove, because the performance was there. We just didn't get the result that we needed to. And I feel like both sides went into this game looking to snap an unwanted run of form. And I know Everton haven't been great at home this season. This is something I touched on at my preview. They've collected only 19 points from their 16 matches in the Prem at home this season. They've actually lost 7 of those 16, so they've lost almost half of the games that they're playing at home. And we know all about home struggles, don't we, mate? But it felt really important for both sides. It felt a bit of a grudge match. I always enjoy playing Everton. I don't know what it is. I think I don't know whether it's the fact it's like, fabled the most played fixture in English league football history or whatever it is. I always enjoy going to Goodison. It feels like a battle between two really proper founding members of the Football League, up two true traditional English clubs. And it's a game I always look forward to. And I felt the Villa boys really rose to that occasion. I thought the midfield looked sturdy and tough, and I felt like we had a better grip on Everton's midfield, which is a very, very talented one. I think we had to say. I think we were James getting injured helped us.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
not having played that 90 definitely helped the Villa boys. But You know, I thought the defence was solid, and I thought the Villa boys had a tenacity and a bit of bite about them. And even with not much to play for as we close out this season, I felt like the Villa boys really left it all out there tonight. And I feel like that's what's been lacking in perhaps in recent games, Dan, is that desire to go out and fight for every point and scrap. Like, it still means something. And tonight we did that. And I think it was just because we were playing for some pride, trying to snap a bad run of form. And the goals that we scored, especially Ollie's, really reflected that tenacity and that bite, didn't it?
It did, and Ollie's goal is wonderful. And I think the only downside of the goal is Ollie's having to create these chances for himself, Dan, which is kind of sad. Jack Grealish isn't in the side, had a scan. Apparently it was good news from Dean Smith's press conference. But the goal actually just sums up Villa and Ollie both perfectly at the same time. Ollie's created that chance for himself. He's gone, he's scored, which is absolutely fantastic. But it's the fact he's had to do it himself. Nevertheless, Villa did create plenty of chances throughout this game, Dan. And to refer back to that tenacity, John McGinn, most tackles in the game, 5. The top 5 tacklers throughout this game. It's dominated by midfielders. You've got Alan, Fabian, Delph, who only made played 20 minutes of football, made 3 tackles, which was the same amount as Douglas Luiz, the same amount of tackles as Alan, same amount of tackles as Matt Targett. And actually, I think what we saw today, Dan, we saw I think, when I'm referring to Villa not necessarily having a grip and a control on the midfield in terms of sort of dictating the play, which you don't really expect away from home anyway, if we can even say that in, the Barclays Premier League in 2021. But John McGinn was actually further up the pitch. And I didn't think it was necessarily his best game, but he found himself in positions where he could, trigger the press onto the Everton midfielders. He's finding spaces, he's causing problems, and again, leading in terms of tackles from both sets of players, which is really important. And again, we have to address the elephant in the room, Dan. Ross Barkley, very good game by Ross Barkley.
Let's talk it, mate. Let's talk it.
Tops the Who Scored ratings for Villa's players during this game with a 7.8, only 0.1 off Luca Dean, who is Who Scored's highest rated player from today, matches Ollie Watkins. Ross Barkley was really good today, and there were a handful of instances again where I think decision making could have been better. There was an instance, if I remember correctly, in the first half where he absolutely should have played Ollie down the right, ends up playing it out to Anwar, I believe. And then there was another one, takes the shot on with his left foot. Again, can't really blame him too much considering, it's against his former club. He certainly wanted to get one over, but we saw a much more confident Ross Barkley. Again, who we referred to in the last podcast, Dan. Barkley didn't have a bad game against West Brom, did he? It's good to see this. It's very much too little, too late, but it's good to see that, he's feeling inspired in recent weeks, I guess.
Mate, it's no surprise that 2 of Villa's best attacking performances in recent months have come as a result of Ross Barkley's form improving. And look, I do think that ship for Villa has perhaps sailed. I'm not going to say completely, but I think that there's every chance that the performances for the majority of the season, as we all know, have been substandard.
Yeah.
But he's still playing for himself. Like, I don't think he's going to go back and play for that Chelsea side. And I think Russ will know that even if that move isn't coming to Villa, that move has to go somewhere. Because Chelsea are now the streets ahead. They're looking for players who are from completely different talent pools, often from completely different countries. And so I don't think this move for Villa is on, but he'll know that he'll need to move somewhere, and so he's playing ultimately to show that he's still got a move in him, and whatever his motivating factors are, he needs to keep it up, man. Because if he can close out this season and play like the player that we know he is, let's face it, we know that Ross Barkley isn't a bad player. He just hasn't been playing well.
We've seen it.
And I was really willing that shot into the bottom corner in the first half. Smacks the beans. And that was really unlucky because I don't know if it was the fact it was against Everton, whether it was his former club, whatever it was. He looked like he was showing signs of getting back to his best. And look, as I said, mate, is that when Jack's out, we need to share that creative burden. I saw a crazy stat from Who Scored the other day, mate, and it was saying that in terms of short key passes made, Jack's made 71 this season, and he's still the top of the league in that metric, and he's missed 10 games. So it's like the creative powerhouse that Jack is, the amount that he does for that team, it's hard to share out that workload. But I think Ross has really stepped up in recent games, and Villa fans aren't going to want to give him the credit for that. But I think we need to be honest, mate.
Absolutely. And, where there's credit, there's criticism, not for Ross, but for Villa. Villa have to do better at set pieces, Dan. Overall, shocking to concede that goal from a set play. Not quite sure. I mean, you can talk me through this, Dan, being a goalkeeper. I'm not really sure what Emmy was going for with that one. And unfortunate Ty doesn't get enough on it. I feel like because the ball it bounces off his knee, then off his arm, but of course it's over the line. And if it wasn't for the momentum of Ty trying to get himself on the line, that kind of stuff, maybe it manages to bounce out. I don't know. Over analysis there, but Villa don't look like scoring from set pieces, in which we had a handful in form of corners, free kicks throughout this game. And you have to defend that one better. One thing you absolutely can't take away, though, is the technique from Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Dan, absolutely fantastic. Does well to really squeeze that one in. And I say that gritting my teeth because he shouldn't squeeze it in, but it's a fantastic technique.
Yeah, he is, mate, and he's so dangerous in the air. And look, we have to we must have recognised that, because that's a large proportion of where DCL's goals come from this season is through set pieces, through his head. Sorry, and I mean, Jack set one up for England. I mean, we should know more than most that he's so dangerous with these headers. And it's annoying that that's happened, but look, he's a player. That's his 20th goal this season. He's been in fantastic form. It's what he does best. It was a little annoying, the situation that it came from. It's annoying that, I don't want to cast a negative light on this performance at all, to be honest with you, Dan, mate, but that clean sheet record that we were starting to build up through the season looks a long way away now. It's been a long time since we started to pick up those clean sheets. And that will, perhaps in the coming days, once the initial joy wears off, that will be a place to improve on for these Villa lads. But I think it was frustrating, but we showed that resilience that I was talking about earlier to come back from that, to especially from a step back, being pegged back yet again, having taken the lead. And I think was a little bit frustrating. It's a shame, Emmy didn't exactly cover himself in glory in the last game, the West Brom game either. And I'm sure he'll be thinking about that one tonight. But as I said, mate, it's hard to be too picky with this one, isn't it?
Absolutely. And one thing we have to be thankful for, Dan, is Villa players who we have championed on the podcast for years, doing the most to absolutely drag this up your recommended page right now for you guys. Anwar El Ghazi, take a bow, son. What a goal. And I think it's kind of the frustrating thing about Anwar is he's so predictable. But of the, 99% of the chances where he kind of comes inside, opens his body, tries to bend it top corner, it doesn't go in. But that 1%, that one time it goes in, Dan, it feels so good.
The thing is with the goal, mate, is that I urge all Villa fans to go and watch this back, because the way that the goal is created is just as good as the finish. Now, I'm going to heap praise on Anwar in just a second, but you watch the goal, and I think it's Everton have the ball on the left-hand side is Luca Digne, and they go to play it forward, and Douglas intercepts this pass, and the way that we move the ball then through the midfield, it's a really nice one-touch move. Bertrand McGinner in goal. Bertrand then shifts it out wide to Anwar, who's squaring up with Seamus Coleman, who's such a seasoned defender. I mean, how many wingers does Seamus Coleman come into one-on-one situations with, and he still comes out on top? It's why he's still playing in the Premier League. But Anwar keeps him guessing, and when he shifts that ball just slightly inside with his right foot, he's got such a short backlift to get that shot off, bend it around Jordan Pickford, and look, the Rotterdam Ronaldo. We love him, Dan, but we know more than anyone. He can be sometimes a 1 in 100 type player. But the one thing you will always back Anwar for is that 1 in 100. Is that you will never be too disgruntled with him trying shots from that range, with him trying something that's a little bit more audacious than other Villa players would, because we know he's got it in the locker. We know that he can do that. And yeah, as you say, mate, it doesn't always come off. It doesn't for any player. If there's a player in world football that's comfortable pulling up from 20 yards every time and bending it all the way to the bank, tell me who he is, because I'd like him on our payroll. But Anwar does it with enough consistency for me to be comfortable in him taking on those opportunities. And look, that's his 8th league goal of the season now. And he's really stepping up in big key moments. And I think with Villa, a lot of Villa fans are looking at wingers this next transfer window. I think a lot of Villa fans have seemingly picked that out as a weak point in the Villa side. But I think the two lads that started today, he didn't get a goal, but I thought Bertie had a very good game. It's almost as if he saw a certain someone get a certain shirt and hang it up on the back of a certain podcast, maybe. But he stepped
Maybe.
up tonight too, man. And both the guys on the flanks deserve huge praise from me because, especially Anwar, because, as you said, mate, right, then Ronaldo does the most.
He does, man. And listen, Anwar is within the top 8 percentile of wingers for total amount of shots within 90 minutes of football. He's averaging about 3.1, which is, again, there's no risk without reward. You've got to be creating them chances to score the goals. So, yeah, you absolutely have to give him credit. And he loves a goal against Everton. 3-3.
Yes, very, very true. Very true.
What a guy. Again, it feels good because, a lot of these players, they get written off so easily. And, we're guilty of ourselves down at times. But Anwar El Ghazi is, for me, cult hero. Absolutely love him. And it's early on in the season, the story of Villa's season is it's quite funny, actually, because we've gone from being one of the most consistently solid teams, able to defend a 1-0 lead. You would bet your mortgage on Villa keeping a clean sheet more often than not, seeing a game out, doing the dirty work. Things haven't quite ended up being that way for Villa. Things have changed. Obviously, in recent games, we saw against West Brom, weren't able to keep the lead, lasted only 11 minutes. And here we are. We've managed to get ourselves back in this game late on, stay in the game as well. So you've got to give a lot of credit to the team performance. You've got to give a lot of credit to Dean and the coaching staff. Can't be too critical of the late changes today, despite Keelan deserving better. But Dan, this is a fantastic performance. It really is. There's so much to be happy about. And we could genuinely sit here and talk about this all night. But Dan, we have to go into the XG before we round this up because you have some important work to do, my friend. Now, it's again, XG. If you're new to the podcast, I love it. I'm making Dan love it. Dan's warming to XG, which makes me happy.
Yeah, I must admit.
Before we get into that, though, I'm actually kind of shocked to see Everton had 16 attempts, 14 from open play against us. It didn't feel like they had that many, but I guess kind of late on that there were a few more chances being created in the second half. But the XG today, 1.32 for Everton compared to Aston Villa's 1.84. Very good value for a 2-1 win, Dan, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Look, it's feels good. It's coming at a good time. It's ended a bad run of form, and now we can really kick on as we close out the season. And look, it's been a very successful season. I feel like the last few months have put a somewhat sour taste in some people's mouths. So, we've got some good ties. I mean, we've got Everton in what 12 days. It's on the 13th of May, so it's like 12 days until we play these guys again. So there's some good opportunities for some wins coming up. We've got 2 home games in a row now, so to bring it back to Villa Park to close out the season would be real nice. And I think one thing that hasn't really been touched on enough is that we've got Morgan Sanson to come back as well. Hopefully we get to see him come back and play before the end of the season, because to add him to this midfield dynamic would be nice. So I think with Jack potentially coming back for that Man United game, he's back in training. There's rumours that might be the one where he might be back in the fold. So it may just be looking rosy, mate.
We can hope, mate. It's a tough end that we've got to this season. Obviously, Manchester United are next. You will see a preview from myself, giving my 5 things Villa must do to beat this Manchester United side. We will probably wait till after the Europa League game, though, because my God, what a game that was the other night against Roma. But the less said about that for now, the better. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know in the comments down below. Let us know who your man of the match is as well. I think it's got to be El Ghazi, purely for stepping up and just being the right Dan Ronaldo, doing the absolute most. Anwar El Ghazi back in the goals. If you haven't, hit the like button, comment your thoughts on the man of the match, and subscribe for more content. Up the Villa.